Hey, this is Andrew Legrand, the attorney with the Sparrow Law Group, and I'm here today with Jesse Venturella, our marketing director. And this is part two of a several part series on how to file your LLC yourself. How you doing today, Jesse?
Doing great, Andrew. How are you?
Doing all right. So if you watch the first part of the video, you'll see that we reserved a name for an LLC with the Louisiana Secretary of State. And if we switch over here and we log into our Go Biz account and click on the Business tab, you can see that the LLC that we got that we registered, the Gulf Coast Hurricane Updates LLC, is at name reservation, and you can see over here that it was approved by the Louisiana Secretary of State. So now we're in a position where we can move forward with actually converting this name reservation into an LLC. So we're going to start by doing that today. First, kind of before we move forward with that, what we're going to need is, and you'll see here when we do it, is we're going to start the conversion process by clicking here. And what's going to happen is it's going to ask us to confirm the name and the reservation and the LLC, and we're going to click next. And first we'll need to select some of the sales tax accounts. Jesse, do you plan on selling any sort of merchandise or things along those lines? Physical goods?
Potentially. Yeah, potentially.
Okay. So we're going to apply for a sales tax account. All these accounts are free, by the way. There's no additional cost. We're just setting them up. So, you may or may not need. So here, it gives us an example of businesses that are in retail sales, use, consumption, distribution, or storage, things of that nature where you need to collect sales tax. So we're going to set one up. So you might sell retail goods. So we'll do that. Do you plan on having employees anytime soon?
No, not at the moment. That's not in the plan.
Okay, so we're not going to do that, and we can always come back and set these up again later. So if you don't plan on doing these things right away, sometimes it's best to just not set them up now and worry about setting them up later when you actually do plan on hiring employees. It's not an income tax. It's not a corporation or an entity taxed as a corporation, so we'll leave that one blank. Other revenue tax accounts, that's not going to apply to most small businesses. Unemployment insurance account, that also relates to whether or not you're going to hire employees. You're not going to be hiring employees just yet, so we'll leave that one. And we're not going to leave that. So then the next question is, do you have employees in Louisiana, or is your business subject to federal unemployment tax in a state other than Louisiana? And we're going to say no, because you don't have employees.
Okay.
So just a sales tax account for us today. LLC ownership type. What is this? What does this mean? So this is essentially a tax election where I advise most people to talk to an accountant about what they should set up. But just to give some kind of short, quick examples of what this is today Jesse is setting up an LLC, and it's in his name by himself. An LLC is what's called a pass-through entity, meaning that Jesse or any single member LLC is going to pay taxes on the income they earn from that business and the expenses they have. Just as if they did not have an LLC. An IRS is not going to look at the LLC at all. It's just going to look as if you had your own personal income on your own Schedule C. So because Jesse's setting up this legal entity by himself, it's a sole proprietorship. So it's it's an LLC taxed as a sole proprietorship. If Jesse has a business partner, it would be taxed as a partnership. If Jesse was doing something a little bit more complicated and his accountant advised him to do so, then he was going to be set up as a corporation. So in short, if there's more than one party, it's a partnership. If there's one party, it's a sole proprietorship. If it's a complicated business, if there's probably more than 5 figures worth of investment in there, really you should only select corporation if an accountant's advised you to. So today we're just going to select sole proprietorship. And now we're going to get some basic questions that are required under state law. We're going to define the company's purpose. Sometimes we want to define the company's purpose to a limited purpose. A lot of times that's useful if you want to say the LLC should only be used for this exact thing. In a lot of small businesses, it's not necessary. So we're just going to select engaging in any lawful activity for which it may be formed, which is just a broad answer of saying anything I want to do. And then what is the duration of the LLC? We're going to put perpetual. For the vast majority of people, these two answers, engaging in any lawful activity in perpetual, are going to be the answers. There could be certain situations in which it makes sense to define the purpose and make the duration shorter. But again, if you're in that sort of situation, that's going to be on the advice of an attorney or an accountant. And other provisions we can skip for now. So doing business as a DBA means that the business is operating as a name other than the LLC. A good example is a lot of bars, right? There's a lot of bars around town, and the legal entity that runs the bar is not the name of the bar itself. So a lot of times you'll have legal entity LLC doing business as the corner bar. It just means that the name that the business operates under is different than the name of the LLC, and essentially allows a patron, an individual who has dealings with that bar, that business, to identify which legal entity is the proper one to sue or serve with process and that sort of thing. So, Jesse, we're not really setting you up with the DBA today. It's not really necessary for our purposes. Your LLC is operating under the name of the LLC. There's no surprise there. So we're just going to leave that blank. And now we need your federal employer identification number. So what is that? And that's your EIN. And we need to go that. That is essentially the identification number for the IRS. So, okay, so now it's time to apply for the EIN for the business. And you see on Google, I just searched for apply for EIN. Something to look out for is look out for these ads. There's a lot of companies out there who will charge you to do this, but don't do that. It's free and pretty easy. So look for the IRS website that's not an ad and click that. Then go through and you'll be kind of on this landing page that explains what an EIN is and all these things, but you just want to click apply online now. And there's a warning that you can close, but we're taken to this EIN assistant and we're going to begin our application today. And so first, it's what is the legal structure that's applying for an EIN? And there's a lot of different reasons that you might, as a sole proprietorship or a partnership, might want an EIN, or sometimes there's estates or trusts that need one. But today we're talking about setting up an LLC, so we're going to select that. And it's going to explain kind of what an LLC is and go through that. So you can read through that, or you can just click continue. Now, how many members in the LLC? Today we're setting up just the single member LLC. We're going to put one in here. And we're going to select Louisiana as our state where the business is physically located. And now it's going to explain what a single member is and what a disregarded entity is. And you can absolutely feel free to read through all this. It might explain your tax situation a little bit better, but this is more of a how-to, not an explanation. So check out that. And then it's going to ask us why we're requesting an EIN. Today we started a new business. And there's some other reasons here, but the vast majority of the times you're going to select start a new business if that's what you're actually doing. And so now we're gonna fill out who is the responsible party, who is the sole member in this thing. So we're gonna type in Jesse's name. We'll put it in the last name, and we'll type in Jesse's social security number. I'm going to indicate that because Jesse's here on the phone with me, I'm going to indicate that I'm one of the owners, members, or managing member of the LLC because I have him looking at this form and actually approving it. If I was doing this without Jesse present, I would actually do this third-party thing and would have to get him to sign the EIN paperwork and what's called an SS4, give me the authority to do that. But because Jesse's here and he's kind of watching me do it and approving it, I'm going to indicate that. And now it's going to ask me where this thing is located. And we will continue. And it's going to ask us if we want to use this this address, and we're going to accept that because that's fine. It's about the same. Gulf Coast Hurricane Updates. A lot of times I'll put a comma here. You'll see that comma. This form doesn't like commas, so you can ignore the comma. If the legal name has a comma and the EIN doesn't, that'll be fine. Can only use dashes and ampersands. Trade name is doing business as. We've talked about that. Jesse's not operating under a trade name or a DBA because it's different than a legal name. That's something completely different, and it's figured out that Jesse's located in Jefferson Parish in Louisiana. and he's set up his articles of organization in Louisiana, and the start date is going to be this month. And so now we got some more questions about just taxes and how that's all going to apply here. So we can go through these. Remember, Jesse's running a internet publishing company, publishing weather reports. So he's not operating motor vehicles. He's not doing any gambling or waging. He does not need to file excise taxes. You can click that and get a good explanation as to what excise taxes are. He's not going to be doing anything in alcohol and tobacco or firearms. And he does not expect to have any employees. Jesse, any questions so far, by the way?
No, actually, pretty good. Good to go.
Cool. So now, what does your business organization do? This can be a little bit tricky to find this. We kind of just scroll down this list, looking to see if any of these make sense. And they don't so far. So we'll indicate that he's other. And it's we're going to indicate other because it's really broadcast media. So yeah, we're looking at all those, and none of those are really right. So we're just going to indicate other. And then what we're going to do is, how do you want to receive this? You really want to receive this online so that you can get it right away. So you'll click continue, and you got to double check, and you can see that I spelled Gulf Coast Hurricane updates wrong. So you'll see that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip forward a little bit, but I'm going to click, I would click submit normally if I didn't have to fix that. And it's going to take me to a screen where it displays the EIN and gives me the ability to download an official looking letter as a PDF. So do two things. When you get to that next screen, copy that EIN over to your clipboard so that you have it saved, and then download that PDF letter, and then head over back to the Louisiana Secretary of State where we can finish setting up the LLC. So we've got his EIN, and for our purposes today, we're just going to type in a blank one, but you'll actually put your real FEIN here, and we'll go through, and first we're going to put in the office of the company, so whatever that might be. And for now, we're just going to use the address of and telephone number and contact information for our law firm, but when you do this, you're going to want to use the address of the company, the registered office of it. And your mailing address can be separate. So you might have times when you want to get mail at a P.O. box or somewhere else, but the registered office does need to be a physical street address. The mailing address can be if you want a P.O. box, but the registered office does need to be a physical location. And again, we're just going to put in some information there. Jesse, any questions about the address, registered office?
No, that was actually pretty straightforward.
So now we get into a registered agent. A registered agent is the person who receives service of process in the event that a limited liability company is sued. So if someone needs to sue a limited liability company, you have to give them the paperwork that initiates the lawsuit. You need to serve them with process. How do you serve something that exists only in our minds and on paper, right? That's where you designate a professional, you designate a person to receive that process. A lot of small businesses just use themselves as their registered agent. And so if they're ever served with a lawsuit, they receive that themselves. Other folks use one of these dozens of professional service companies that somehow got registered on here. Other people use our law firm to do that. We sell that as a service. Other people do it themselves. For a lot of small businesses, if you're just trying to save on costs, if cost is your biggest concern, then that's what I recommend you do is you just make it yourself and leave yourself there. And what you'll do is you'll put in your own address where you want that to happen. You can add an additional registered agent here. I really don't recommend that. I think one is enough. You only want one person to get served. You don't want to make it any easier for the business to get served than it has to be. So then we move into who are the members, who are the managers. In a sole proprietorship situation like we're setting up for Jesse here, we should just make it member managed. A member is the person who actually owns the company, who has equity ownership in it, who's going to pay taxes on the profits. A manager is somebody who has usually a little bit higher level of control. So a lot of times when we're setting up a company for folks, we'll see that there's a bunch of owners who are all the members, and then there's one person who has more day-to-day control, and that person's the manager, and they have certain things that they can do without member approval, but there are certain things that require member approval. So it's ways of splitting up the roles and responsibilities in the company. A lot of small companies are going to just be member managed. So we're going to type that person in here. And of course, you would put your real social security number in here and indicate whether that person is a member or manager. And typing in more of the business information. Okay, so now it's asking for somebody to sign. I'm going to actually put my name on here because I'm the organizer. The organizer is simply the person who's setting it up. It's not the member, not the manager. It's kind of a different title. It's really just the person help setting it up. So we as a law firm list ourselves as the organizer a lot of time, but that doesn't give us any sort of additional control or authority or anything other than say, hey, we set this up on behalf of somebody else. So now we're going to kind of review what's called the Articles of Organization, the document that actually sets this up. Jesse looked through this with me. Gulf Coast Hurricane Update, any purpose for perpetual, and it's member managed, and I'm the organizer. So that's straightforward there.
That's good.
And now we're looking at the initial report. The initial report is what is the address? Where is this place actually located? Who owns it? Who are the registered agents? So again, we got our registered office, which has to be a physical address in the state of Louisiana. We've got the mailing address, which is where we want to file our mail. We have the limited liability, the registered agent who receives service of process. So we can validate that. Who are the members or managers? We just have one member right now, and I have myself as the organizer. So what's going to happen with this is whenever you designate someone as a registered agent, whether it's yourself, whether it's a law firm, whether it's a service company, what's going to happen is that person needs to say, yes, I actually agree to be the registered agent for this person. So typically what's going to happen is an email is going to be sent out to that person, and they'll have to follow the prompts. It's pretty straightforward, but says, hey, you've been designated as the registered agent for Gulf Coast Hurricane Updates. Click here if you accept. You click here, and then it says, do you accept? And you click I accept. And it's really as simple and straightforward as that. But usually you can just follow the prompts in the email. But just know that before the company's set up, what's going to happen is we're going to complete this application. An email is going to be sent out to the registered agent to accept it. And they're going to have to accept that. And then the Secretary of State will come back and finish the filing. But this needs to be done within 7 days. And they usually send that email out within a day or two. It's usually pretty quick. Now we got to describe the business activity. What this is similar to the way we set up the EIN for reporting. We're also looking for the NAICS code. So, this is something that we actually get questions about from time to time where people want to know, hey, I don't know what NAICS code I am. Which one do I use? First thing to know is that you really can't get this wrong. There's no penalties, there's no fines, there's no fees, there's nothing associated with this. This is only used so that the government can track how specific industries and sectors of our economy are doing. So what you can do here is you can either type in NAICS search and get to this page and type in a keyword and start searching, and this page itself has a lot more information. Or you can kind of search from just the Secretary of State's website and search by keywords. And we're going to just type in broadcasting because that's what Jesse's doing. And we can look and see that, Jesse's probably internet publishing and broadcasting web search portals. Sometimes, by the way, this can take 5 or 10 minutes to look through and find what the right one is for you. Again, find one that you think makes sense. But if you can't find one, also know that it's not the end of the world. But just keep digging, keep looking, and you'll eventually be able to figure out which one makes sense. If you have different lines of business, just kind of estimate as to which contributions go here. And it's going to confirm that, and we're going to click yes. And now we're setting up a sales tax account. So we're going to just indicate that the sales begin today. So we can enter the anticipated starting date, and we might indicate that sales for Jesse are not starting until next month. Do you file for use tax? Use tax is similar to sales tax. Sales tax is typically something where there's a tangible good exchange. A use tax is more like somebody's using some sort of space. They're paying for the use of a thing, kind of like a lease or a sale. Actually, if you search general sales and use tax in Louisiana Department of Revenue, you'll get this handy dandy guide right here that explains a lot of it. Again, if you have more questions on this, ask your accountant, or maybe first call Louisiana Department of Revenue and ask them. They're usually pretty helpful, and they have a lot of information on their page about all this. But for Jesse's business, he thinks he's going to be selling T-shirts, things of that nature, right, Jesse? And probably shouldn't be selling too much else. Maybe some ad space in his broadcast media stuff, which we've looked at, and that isn't subject to sales tax. So for him today, he's not doing any excise, no fuel, no severance, and no other sort of hotel sort of tax there. But again, it can be helpful with this to ask an accountant to make sure you know what taxes you're paying, and you're all in the clear there. So this is our application summary to the Louisiana Department of Revenue, and this all looks good, so we're going to click through. This is just a question about whether we want to expedite this. Honestly, they're usually pretty quick, but if you need to get the LLC set up that day, this is what you want to do. Otherwise, it usually takes just a few days, so a lot of times, unless you really, really need it to be expedited, it's not worth it. I'll also make a quick note on this SBF that's called Secure Business Filings. That's essentially a higher level of security to make sure that somebody cannot modify your listing with the Louisiana Secretary of State. Frankly, we've only used that a few times, and it's been situations in which business partners have been acrimonious, or there's been some sort of romantic partner who is trying to harass the business owner, and we've wanted to secure their LLC. So that's essentially what that is. Jesse, I've kind of gone through this pretty quick. Any questions from you?
No, actually, it's been pretty straightforward. I do want to mention that when we did the name reservation, the process was done within 24 hours. So even without it being expedited, it's a relatively fast process for it.
Yeah, so I think expediting helps if you need to set up an LLC that day to buy a piece of real estate. Really, is the only example I could think of is when it would be needed to do that. Otherwise, they're a pretty efficient and fast office.
Yeah.
So then we're going to click here, and I'm going to click Check Out and File. I'm not going to do that today because we kind of made some of these examples up for the purposes of this video. We're going to set up his LLC separately, where we're keeping his address and social security number and those sorts of things off the internet. But when you click that, it's going to likely confirm it and give you a confirmation page. There might be a few more prompts. If you click through, the Secretary of State will actually give you the option of figuring out what licenses and tools and other things you might need to set up your business. Really, for Jesse, some of the next steps are taking that EIN letter he received from the IRS and the Articles of Organization. Once those are done, they're going to get two nice, very official-looking PDFs. Taking those to his local bank, his favorite bank, and opening up a business checking account. Maybe putting a couple thousand bucks in there to kind of float it for a little bit, and set up a bank account. And then to get an occupational license from the parish in which he resides. So for Jesse, he would search for Jefferson Parish occupational license, and some details would come up for how to get an occupational license. Every business in the state of Louisiana is required to have an occupational license. Some businesses get away without having one. Some businesses, like restaurants, are more tightly regulated, and it's harder for them to get away with that. But an occupational license is required for everyone, and it's a minimum of $50 per business location, and then it's based off of generally based off of businesses' revenue. So businesses with more revenue pay a higher tax, but it's $50 per year for that. Fortunately, Jefferson and Orleans Parish, East Baton Rouge, some of the biggest parishes in the state are really make this easy, and it can be done online. Other times you need to go into City Hall or the clerk of court or one of those offices, or the sheriff's office who actually collects the taxes to do that. But that would be the next step. So we're done setting up the legal entity for the Gulf Coast Hurricane Updates. We've gone through and done the name reservation, and then applied for the EIN, and finally got the LLC approved. So now Jesse's up and running with an LLC and taking this side hustle into an actual business, taking the next step, proving it can be successful and earn some money from it. Jesse, any questions about the process? Any thoughts?
No. I think we pretty much covered all of that. I didn't really have any other questions about it.
Great. To you all, thank you so much for watching, and congrats on watching all of this, and hopefully you were able to set up your LLC yourself. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments or give us a call, 504-300-9938. We can kind of help you through any other issues you might walk through. Take care.